Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty and I'm joined today by Sean Martin and Alison McConnell. Haggerty 10, what handle at Sean Martin TCW, Ali Bally 76, I think it is. Alison, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And you?
Yes, good. Sean, yourself?
Not bad, aye.
Now, troops, they say a week's a long time in politics, a week's a long time in football as well, isn't it? This time last week it was 3-0 against Hibernian, 2-0 against Hibernian, sorry. Everybody was cock-a-hoop, things were looking great. They move along to the Scottish Cup and all of a sudden some wheels are coming off the barra, as they say in old Glasgow parlance. Sean, Ideguchi now being ruled out as well for Wednesday night. So Celtic carrying more injuries. Calmack obviously not there as well. So it never rains but it pours for poor Ange, does it?
That's it. I mean, I said yesterday to you, it can't catch a break. It's just constant. There's constantly people unavailable. Obviously, if you count the likes of Karamoko Dembele, maybe you don't because he's not really broke into the first team squad properly yet. And then obviously Chris Julian, who he's not had all season. You're talking at least 4 first teamers for most games that he's been without. You could probably say more than that. But for this next week, given that there's not just injuries but international unavailability, you could say he goes into this run of games without his top scorer, his chief creator, his main set piece taker, a key new signing, and now no captain either. So
any good news?
When you lay it out like that, I know. When you lay it out like that, it's. I mean, I wrote a piece earlier in the season about the fact that he'd taken the job, and within weeks he was without like 4 of his probably best 11, and there's only been a minimal amount of time where he's probably had a best 11, and that's still including the fact that Julian, that's even taken him out of that contention. So, no, he can't catch a break, and that's continuing here into this week.
Alison, what a season-defining week this could be, and as Sean just alluded to there, we should just all pack up and go home now because we're missing all these people. So, yeah. But
I would agree. I think it is season-defining. I think there's more of a safety net than what there was. I think the fact that the gap's been reduced to 4 points does help a bit. But, yeah, realistically, I would take the point that if you want to go into that Rangers game and really put pressure on Rangers, and Celtic should and are more than capable of going and winning that, but before you get there, you need to win every game that's in front of you. You need to win at Tynecastle, you need to beat Dundee United, and then you need to go into the Rangers game with a bit of momentum at your back. And I actually think if Celtic are to prevail on Wednesday night now at Tynecastle and come through it, it should inject a huge amount of confidence and belief, because if you can do it with one hand almost tied behind your back in terms of personnel that are out, it should really offer an indication of what you do have and what you've got about you. Yeah. I take your point. I think it's been an odd season in terms of injuries. I don't think there has been one point this term where everyone has been available. I think it's a season in microcosm this week. It's just every other week there has been players going out, and I think the unlucky element to it is it's been key players, it's been players in key positions, it's been players in similar positions. It has been a significant hindrance, and every time you think there's a bit of light coming in, you seem to be taking another step back again. I think it's difficult to quantify the loss of Callum McGregor. I think he's huge for Celtic. I think not just in terms of the role he plays within the team and the quiet nature of what he offers that maybe slips under the radar at times, but just the sense of leadership and direction that he gives Celtic, and also just the fluency that he gives in the middle of the park. I think it's a tremendous loss for Celtic. I just wonder if Nir Bitton now might go in and play that role, and Hatate has a freer role. But it's interesting, this time last week we're saying the squad's bloated, like there's an incredible amount of depth, and then all of a sudden you look at it and you think, what's the team tomorrow? Who's where and what's going on? And I think, as we've said, I think it's been the story of the season so far, but yeah, there's no solution other than what's in front of you, and Celtic need to find a way to win at Tynecastle. And when you look at it and you look at the players that are there, they ought to have the resources to do it, and they ought to have the capability of doing it.
Sean, was on the other pod yesterday, as I do, and I said that exactly. And I said that probably this is actually a game tailor-made for Giakoumakis because he's a big, target man, as you say, and now he's going to obviously have to get his chance and play a prominent role in these next 3 games. But Wednesday might suit him. It's a bit rough and tumble, and he might actually like that.
I mean, I think he is obviously a more physical option than Kyogo, and I think you saw. I mean, he obviously is better in the air as well. And you've seen when he's had the kind of cameos coming on at the end of the Ferencváros game, for instance, where takes it in physical, not just physically battering people about, but actually takes it in, tries to either win the foul or move it on, rather than the ball not sticking and all that. But he does finish first time a lot, which means that you've seen it with the goal the other day. Scales putting in a good ball. He made the run across the defender and finished it really well. So I think that's the kind of way you get the best out of Giakoumakis. And I don't think, already this season, Ange has shown it quite likes a cross. It might not always be the way that you want to see them go, because sometimes it can be repetitive. If they don't score right away, then you're just launching balls in and seeing them come back out. But ideally with Ange's tactics, you isolate a winger one-on-one with a fullback. Now that realistically should lead to either a cutback or a cross into the box. And Giakoumakis has already shown that he can finish those kind of chances. He done it against St Johnstone as well when he scored in the first start. So there are ways to get him his chances. And I mean, when he played last season in the Eredivisie, I think it was Andy Barr's done the scouting report on him, and it was all but 2 or 3 of his goals were one-touch finishes in the box. So in that sense, that's the kind of way you would get the best out of him for me. And I don't necessarily think that it needs to be high aerial balls into his head, into his physicality. Just in general, it needs to be balls into him. But if it is to be high balls, I don't think that necessarily goes against Ange Postecoglou's philosophy or anything. I mean, anybody that would suggest it does probably, I'd say, hasn't been paying attention to what he's done in his past. I said it with the 3 at the back. When he done that wasn't him being pragmatic and compromising and all that. He'd done it with Australia. The principles were still the same, and I think it will be the same whether he's playing high cross balls or low cross balls into Giakoumakis. He'd done it when he was with Australia with Tim Cahill, who was not what you would call a flair player. He played to his strengths with the rest of the team to get the aerial balls into the back post and stuff. So it can be done if he wants to play to Giakoumakis' strengths, whether it's aerial or whether it's simply whip balls. I think it can be done, but it's up to him, obviously, to finish the chances if they come.
Alison, you wrote a piece about Giakoumakis and the role that he's going to have to play over the next 3 games in particular. He can make himself a hero if he does well too. But the one good thing I took from Saturday was his finish from Liam Scales' on-point delivery. Difficult skill, but he buried it. And as Sean said, he did the same with St Johnstone when Ralston hit the ball at him like a bullet and he still managed to turn it in. So there is the nuts and bolts of a striker there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought it was a good finish. He could have had a second just a minute later, I think.
Should have.
I think too, it's probably been a very frustrating few months for the boy himself, coming into a new club, getting injured, not being able to piece together a sequence of games together. First of all, not being able to get into the team, then getting in and getting injured. I think he'll have a point to prove. I think he will relish the opportunity. I think for any of us who regularly speak to footballers and interview them, none of them are shy in confidence. Every player backs himself to go and make an impact and to score, and I'm sure he'll be quietly feeling as though this is an opportunity for him to go and showcase what he's got. I think when everyone is fit and available, there's an argument that he faces a fight to get in and start, so he'll see this as a chance to go and show people what he's got, and I think he does have something, and I think he has something that's a bit different from the other strikers who are at the club. But as we've said before, I think Wednesday night, so much seems to be weighted on it now for Celtic and where the title is and just the balance of the campaign. We know what happened in the opening night of the season. We know that it can be a fairly feisty atmosphere at Tynecastle. I think you've got to go and embrace it. And I think you have to go with a level of optimism. I think when you look at the stats and how Celtic have been playing over recent months, and how long we've gone unbeaten in terms of the league campaign. They need to go. It's a test, it's an examination, and it's an examination of character as it is as much about ability. And I think it's about going and eking out a result now, no matter how it's done.
Sean, Celtic can go there in confidence they're on. As I say, I think it's an 18-game unbeaten domestic run. So there's no reason to suggest that they can't go to Tynecastle and win. And Angie's always said, no excuses. This is just a case of, and we get on with it, running their own race. All those things that you said, this is a classic example of that on Wednesday night, isn't it? As Alison says, just go there and eke a win. Doesn't matter how you do it.
I think so. I mean, a comment from Alex here saying can't go into games scared, have to play our game. I'd agree with that. I think that's exactly the message Ange will be putting out. I think that's always the message he puts out, that it's, I mean, bravery is a big thing for Ange's teams all the way through, from goalkeeper to up front. They've got to be brave enough to, one, play the way that he's asking them to play, but do it even when it's not going their way is the key. That's the kind of bravery that he means. And even when he changed out most of the team for a game, I know it was a dead rubber and the context is different, but the Real Betis game, I mean, you could argue the majority of that team probably don't suit playing the way that Ange wants them to play, but he gave them all a game, and I thought they'd done really, really well that day, the majority of them. And that in itself was brave, not just for Ange to choose them all, but for them to actually go into that game, probably knowing it was a one-off, but to play in the manner they've been playing in training and all that kind of thing. Now, I know that the context is different at Tynecastle away, it always is, but I think that kind of theme of bravery will need to be prevalent over the next kind of 3 games, or if McGregor is out for 4 or more weeks, then you're talking at least 7 games without the captain. So there's a bravery to be had at that point as well.
Now, Alison, you mentioned Bitton coming back in. Now, Bitton hadn't really done much wrong to be ousted out the side, but I think Celtic fans would be a lot more confident in seeing him come back into that anchor role, possibly beside Hatate and even maybe O'Reilly.
Yeah, I think he's the obvious solution there. I think he's the obvious answer to go in and deputise for Callum McGregor. I think since the Midtjylland game away at the start of the season, I think Nir Bitton has offered a note of redemption, if you like. I think many people thought, that there was a lot of anger in the aftermath of that game and the dismissal. I think a lot of people thought it might have been quite difficult for him to come back from it. Since then, and since coming back into the team in the latter few months, I'm not sure he's done too much wrong. I think he's been willing to play wherever he's been asked. He's given Celtic a certain kind of versatility. I think you can see he's keen just to go and do his job and do a job for the team, which I think feeds into the kind of philosophy that Ange Postecoglou wants. I think the kind of players that he wants, who are there and who have a bit of humility about them in terms of just going in and doing what they're asked. I think Callum McGregor maybe epitomises that more than anyone else. But I don't think he's done too much wrong since that obviously inauspicious start to Ange Postecoglou's regime. I think he's conducted himself fairly well.
Now, Sean, the manager has said we've lacked ruthlessness, lacked that clinical edge. Be a nice time to rediscover that, wouldn't it? Against Hearts on Wednesday, on Dundee United and Rangers, if they can create the chances that they have been creating, but only take them and make it comfortable for themselves.
It certainly would. I mean, it's key, to be honest. You'd think it's got to come at some point. That they will click in the manner that maybe gets another 6-0 kind of result, but ultimately, as long as it's one more than the opposition, as Johan Cruyff said, then it doesn't really matter. but no, I agree with you. It would be good. It would be good if for once Ange is able to say after the game, I actually thought we took our chances. I actually thought we were clinical, because it's very rare he's been able to say that so far.
Cruyff would probably get injured, wouldn't he, if he was playing for Celtic? There you go, Alison. That's probably what would happen now. We'd have a pivotal player. He'd get injured, wouldn't he? You know what I mean? That would be Ange's luck. But no, Alison, I think you're right. That you're talking about different parts of bravery and going and winning, but Celtic know what's at stake now, don't they? And I think the bit's still between the teeth. They are now. I think you wrote about it, Alison, saying about hunting Rangers down. And it's a different pressure as well on Rangers, isn't it? Being the hunted team, and that psychological advantage of that 2 points that they gained.
And I think that was maybe an element of one of many elements of frustration last season, that Celtic never really put Rangers under pressure once they went in front. They never really asked questions of them. I think it is a different pressure when you're leading and there's someone at your back. And I think that's what Celtic have the opportunity to do now. And I think however this plays out over the next couple of weeks, in the next 3 games, I think you will come to see it as fairly definitive in the league title, because if Celtic are to win the next 3 games, then all of a sudden the momentum is all with Celtic, is all with the chasing team. And I think that's when you really see what teams are made of, because there are more certainly there are other elements in just going out and performing. I think when you're performing, knowing that one slip flips things at the top, the psychology around the game is vastly different from what it is when you know that you have that cushion. Celtic weren't able to do it at all last season. I think Rangers were able to go and kick their heels and really leave Celtic in their wake. This is a time where you have to keep the pressure on. I think there was a reprieve almost last week, Celtic beating Hibs and then Rangers dropping points at Pittodrie. I think it just narrows it that little bit, and it's about Celtic seizing that opportunity now and making sure that it counts. But ultimately, it's about winning games. I think if you're going to win a title, you do need to go to Tynecastle and get a result. You can't bemoan your luck in terms of injuries too much. I think we can all look at it and offer a degree of sympathy. It has felt unusual in the fact that there has been a full treatment table at every point in this season, significant players that have been out. But ultimately, if you're going to win a title, it's about finding a way to compensate for that and making sure that you get through.
Now, Sean, there's talk that Callum McGregor couldn't even be available for the Rangers game. That optimistic?
Probably is optimistic. I mean, you might see him turn out in a mask for a couple of games, but it depends. It depends on how it goes. I mean, you can't necessarily rush him back either. Although I'm sure he would allow himself to be rushed back, to be honest. But no, we'll need to see. I mean, the more conservative estimates have said probably 4 weeks rather than 6 or 8. But as I say, if it is 4 weeks, that's still 7 games. It's just the way that Celtic's fixture list falls in. That's like the 3 games that we've been talking about so far. But on top of that, you've got you've got Motherwell and Aberdeen away, Wraith Rovers in the Cup, and then the first leg of the Bodo Glimt game tie. So like 7 games, it's still a massive miss. Primarily though, you need to take these 3 games, I would say, in kind of in isolation for it, and that is probably the 3 games you would not want them to miss.
Yeah, very much so. I wrote a piece this morning on the Celtic with Alison, and I was kind of comparing it to those 3 games in 2008 when Celtic played Rangers twice, and sandwiched in between it was Aberdeen, Gordon Strachan's team. That was on a charge to the title. They won 7 in the spin, and they won it at Tannadice. But the mentality is the same. You have to play these games. And you have to win them, and that's it. You just have to get on with it, regardless of the circumstances, knowing that a slip-up could be detrimental to your title chances.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think that goes for every season. I think that pressure is there at Celtic all the time. I think there is a demand to go and win, and not just win, but to go and deliver trophies, to go and be successful as a club. When you look at where Celtic have been over the course of the last decade, it's been a sustained period of domestic success. Obviously, last season was a disappointing return in the manner in which everything unravelled. I think this season was always seen as is it going to be a fairly fraught rebuilding process. I think people have bought into what Ange Postecoglou wants to do. I think they can see the philosophy that he wants to bring to the club. I think they've applauded the football that's been in show, applauded the vision and the elements that they've seen when it has come together. I think it is still a work in process. I think Celtic have toiled at certain times against specific teams who camp in and there's not a lot of space. I think you have seen sticky games. But what has been encouraging is always that both windows, I think, have been very successful in terms of bringing in players that fit the mould. I think, my goodness, it's hard to remember so many players coming in and making such an impact on their debuts and in their first opening weeks of a season. You look at the impact Kyogo had, and then again last week when Maeda comes in and scores and Hatate comes in and scores. Hatate comes in and makes such an impact on his debut. I think there are players coming to the club that offer a scope of excitement, but it's about knitting that together to form a team and a cohesive unit that are capable of playing a certain way while delivering silverware. And that's always the remit at Celtic, and it always will be. I think what you're seeing this season is a belief that there's a team capable of going and delivering it.
Well, we move on to tomorrow, Sean, and it will all come out in the wash. It'll be myself and Alison tomorrow. I think you'll be enjoying a day off, Sean, won't you?
Kinda.
Well, on that note, we shall reconvene tomorrow, Alison, and we'll probably have our predicted lineups et al. And we'll see if people agree. Sorry I didn't read out too many comments today. I was just enjoying the chat, to be honest, but there you go. Thanks for your contribution, Alison. Thanks, Sean. Always enjoy it. And thanks, guys, for your comments as well. I'll do better the next time and read out more of them. Cheers, guys. Have a good day. Bye.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.